Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. We live in an era that aggressively pushes a very specific, kind of exhausting narrative. To be successful, you absolutely must be hypervisible, right? We're constantly told that if you aren't broadcasting every single milestone, every random thought, and every waking moment of your daily grind, you basically don't exist. It's the modern digital hustle. It's this relentless cycle where your actual worth feels completely tied to your public output. But what if the exact opposite is true? Actually, what if stepping back from that exhausting digital treadmill is literally the most strategic move you could possibly make? Today, we're unpacking the fascinating psychology of the silent winner and exploring why, counterintuitively, aggressively guarding your privacy is actually your greatest unacknowledged power.
I want to ask you a question right up front, and I want you to really reflect on your own daily habits here. Is your digital display costing you power? Think about the sheer cognitive load required to maintain a constant public persona. I mean, psychologists have noted that the mental bandwidth we spend just managing how other people perceive us online is staggering. Honestly, sometimes it feels like it takes way more energy to curate the post about a professional win than it actually took to achieve the win in the first place. We easily get trapped into equating being perpetually visible with being powerful. But the reality? Constantly maintaining that digital display, feeding the algorithm, anticipating reactions, it takes a massive, invisible toll on your core energy. So is the exhaustion of constantly broadcasting your life actually draining your influence rather than building it?
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we are talking about. When we contrast these two fundamentally different approaches to navigating the world, the divergence is just incredibly clear. On one side, we've got the digital display. Now, this requires constant, active upkeep. It is utterly exhausting because it operates on this endless cycle of showing, proving, and just waiting for external validation. It creates a very fragile illusion of power, one that totally shatters the moment the applause stops. On the exact opposite side, we have quiet confidence. Now, this is incredibly empowering because it acts like a heavy anchor. It's power held in reserve. It absolutely doesn't rely on a constant drip of outward validation, which makes it a much more solid, unshakable foundation for actual long-term influence.
Which brings us to a really fascinating archetype, the silent winner. So, a silent winner is someone who specifically and strategically leverages this quiet confidence because they recognize that it's often far more potent than any digital display could ever be. They understand a fundamental truth that, honestly, gets completely lost in today's noisy landscape. True success absolutely does not require an audience. Think about the mechanics of this for just a second. When you don't have an audience to perform for, your decision-making fundamentally shifts. You stop optimizing your choices for public applause, and you start optimizing them for actual tangible results. Your ego essentially takes a backseat to genuine strategy. You don't need a cheering section to be highly effective. In fact, the lack of one usually makes you sharper.
So the crucial point is, withholding information actually weaponizes your mystery. When you protect your mystery, you create this undeniable, almost magnetic psychological influence over others. And it all comes down to a really surprising quirk of human psychology. The human brain is essentially an anticipation machine. When it encounters an information gap, it treats it like a giant puzzle that urgently needs solving. So when people don't know your every move, they naturally fill in the blanks. And here is the secret. They almost always project greater competence, profundity, and capability onto the person who speaks less. That empty space, that unknown variable you create by simply staying private, inherently draws people in. It commands their attention in a way that constant oversharing literally never could. When we break down the actual behavior logically side by side, the contrast in how this psychological influence plays out is pretty stark. The instinct to overshare actively dilutes your impact. By giving away every single detail of your process, your thoughts, and your day, you're giving people massive amounts of surface area to critique, pick apart, and ultimately get bored by. Conversely, prioritizing and protecting your mystery acts as a powerful multiplier for respect. It's basically the economic principle of scarcity, but applied to human presence. Because you speak and act less frequently for the public eye, you subconsciously train people that your words have value. When you do finally choose to reveal something or make a move, it carries significantly more weight, gravity, and influence, purely because it isn't lost in a sea of constant chatter.
This brings us to a profound insight from the research that shifts our focus from the external straight to the internal. Because you see, this phenomenon isn't solely about outward leverage, projecting power, or how others perceive you. It's deeply, fundamentally connected to your own internal state of being. Successful people value privacy to maintain mental peace. This highlights privacy not just as a tool for influence, but as the ultimate, necessary shield against modern burnout. By actively stepping away from the relentless demands of the digital display, highly successful people create a fortress. This boundary physically and emotionally protects their mental bandwidth. It allows them to actually rest and recharge without having to, perform their relaxation for a digital audience. It keeps their inner peace totally intact, and their energy strictly their own.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a cohesive, actionable strategy you can apply right away. Based on everything we've covered, we can see a really clear narrative connecting the key traits of successful people who master this dynamic. First, it starts internally. They deliberately cultivate quiet confidence. They know they're winning, so they strip away the desperate need for you to know it too. Because they have that secure foundation, they can easily move to the second step, actively protecting their mystery to maintain that potent psychological influence we just discussed. And finally, by protecting that mystery, they achieve the ultimate goal. They fiercely prioritize their privacy to guarantee their mental peace. It is a brilliant self-reinforcing loop of power. These aren't accidents, folks. They are deliberate strategic choices to guard their energy. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to bring all of this directly back to you. In a world that is constantly screaming for your attention and demanding that you surrender your privacy for a few fleeting likes, choosing silence is the ultimate flex. It's time to reclaim your power from the algorithm and from the totally exhausting expectation of constant availability. I challenge you to rethink your next public move. Consider the immense, undeniable strength that comes from simply choosing not to share. What will you choose to keep hidden today?